Welcome back. Welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast studios. And this whole mix of how this comes about and so many things and my presentation, talking with hands, rapper hands, as they say, it's hip hop. It's rooted in hip hop. And the journey of hip hop has had an influence on all culture across the world. So it's great when you see someone come from the realm of hip hop and get into different things and take it on that path, and from microphones and chords and ciphers and things like that to business world, artistry, design, curation, and so much more. A brother that came out and celebrated his birthday with Playlist Live. So that was that Miss Eva's, but also somebody that's definitely connected and always beloved, always been a cool brother. Every time I've connected with him, more so in passing, but in passing now brings them to the studio. Mr. Brent Smith, how are you doing today?
Doing well, man. How you doing?
Man, all is well, man. All is well. Yeah. So definitely a person that also checks for Detroit is Different. You know the flow of it.
I know the flow. I know the setting.
Hilarious.
Congratulations on 10 years.
Thank you.
I remember when it popped off and it started.
Yes.
And it's a dream to be here, man. It's a dream to be on Detroit is Different podcast.
Respect, man. And as you see, we going in thick as you repping the Lions.
Oh yeah.
Detroit is different.
You know, we won again.
We win again. Yeah. Shout out to G-Mac Cash, another hip hopper that's doing like G-Mac's a smarter. I'm getting him on in 2025.
Yes.
But like rappers be doing things.
Man, he's smacking them out there too.
Yeah.
Yeah. In live time.
Yeah. I mean, and with the style, with the flow, and so many other things created, people thought it was just Popeyes got roaches.
Right.
But just so many other concepts since then, and the creativity of being like on time, almost like cipher time with it. So with that being said, now let's go to your classic Detroit story, man. Yo peoples, how many generations deep? You first, second, third? What's the story?
So my father likes to call himself a 6th generation or a 5th generation farmer.
Okay.
So that would make me a 6th generation farmer.
Okay. Farmer, Detroit.
Yeah.
How many generations deep in the D?
Oh, in the D?
Yep.
2.
Okay.
2.
So your grandparents was first here.
So my grandparents were first here, actually in Hamtramck. Yep. Off of Yeaman Street.
Okay. So whereabouts where did they come from to get to Hamtramck?
That's a good question. Chicago, by way of Arkansas, Alabama. If we want to be specific, Bessemer, Alabama. Also, Tiller, Arkansas. My family came from the South, and so that's why I even connected to farming.
Okay.
Because
fam has been 6 generations.
Yeah.
So Arkansas is definitely one of those places where it's a lot of people in Chicago.
Yeah.
Here. Alabama is definitely one of the places where it's a lot of Detroiters here.
Yep.
So I could see to Chicago first.
Yeah.
And whereabouts in Chicago?
My father was early in Cabrini Greens with his mother and his sister.
So Cabrini Greens is the classic projects that you see from, we all know, Good Time.
Yep.
And right now in Chicago, you're not going to see the housing developments that, we refer to as projects nowadays, because many of those towers have been demolished, and other ways of HUD housing is developmented through vouchers and systems and things like that. But
Thanks.
Chicago was one of those places. Detroit has some, but Cabrini Greens may be, through Good Times, I would say probably the most the most popular or known concept of what a project is.
It's crazy when you look at the origins of projects across America, and you see St. Louis had the first project, and then I just got up on like LA's project, the Nickerson Gardens, and it's just wild. So yeah, my origins or my father's origins, Chicago by way of the South.
Okay, and then also from Chicago to Detroit, what was it the connection to lead a shy and come to the D?
So I think it was my grandfather was ready to move on, get something else.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Flint was a stop in that journey as well. So we, families are big, right? I got a big family. And so part family went to Flint. Some family went to Detroit.
Y'all just was like hitting all the industrial cities.
Yeah,
you
man.
Got some family in Gary, Indiana. You just like up and down the corridor.
Up and down the corridor. And I think that really shaped, who I am and my identity to see, just a perspective from different places.
Yeah. So with that, Hamtramck, and when you talk about different places, people don't know, inside Detroit, there are two cities inside of Detroit. One is Hamtramck, the other is Highland Park. Mm-hmm. And Hamtramck, I think it was something that came out not too long ago that said it may be the most diverse place in the United States of America. And literally, it's like, as much as Detroit is different, Hamtramck is
super different.
I don't even know the word for it really, because it's Eastern European culture.
Yeah.
It's strong Bangladeshi culture.
Yep.
It's Black American culture. It's and when I say Eastern European, like different blocks of Eastern Europe. So it's like Ukrainians, Russians, Yugoslavians, Bosnians, Rudy Tomjanovich, that was the coach from from the Rockets. Houston Rockets, grew up in Hamtramck too. So this mix of all these cultures, it's a unique place.
Yeah, it's a very unique place and lots of different cultural representation. So people being very about it with who they are and where they come from.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And like, I didn't even know, like, you can go to Hamtramck, like when people say like, oh, I want to try some different food. Like, people sometimes don't think to themselves like, let's go to Hamtramck. But that's really where you eat Bengali food in Hamtramck. That's not the Bengali food they're making for Americans.
Right.
That's the menu you're going to pull up like, I don't know what this is.
Yeah. Unless you at the Yemen Cafe. Because I feel like that's
one of
creme
the
de la creme. Yeah.
But I'm saying, like, when I say I don't know what this is, meaning this is for them.
Sure.
Welcoming you in.
Yeah.
It's not, there's no chicken tenders and a kids menu or nothing like that.
No,
you may need to
I need some chicken tenders. Yeah, you're right though. Like the Eastern European, they not serving it up like that for everybody.
No. The soups, the spaces and places. I mean, for most Detroiters, we just think, some people may think Hamtramck and Fat Tuesday and Paczki Day because of the Polish influence that exists inside of Hamtramck. So they hit Hamtramck first. How long do they stay there? And I'm guessing possibly working in factory work, I'm guessing.
So I mentioned, different sides of the family. So my father's side, his grandmother had a big family, and so they were all in this one house on Yemen Street. And that family that grew up there ended up locating, growing their family off of Curtis and Steele.
Okay.
West side Detroit. And so my grandmother, she just sold her house maybe 10 years ago on Yemen Street. She, received, care in her old age. She lived to be 102 years old.
That's beautiful, man.
And so a lot of her identity was in that home. She was many things, but she worked for Bell. Her name was
Bell. So for people that didn't
drop
know,
it on
them. The first, I guess, monopoly, I think that a lot of people know that was broken up, was the telephone company of Bell.
Yeah.
Which we know now as AT&T, but it was just one telephone company in the beginning.
Yeah.
So that was Bell.
Yeah.
And it was different, like in Michigan, Ma Bell, as they would say. So, like, that whole concept of working in the telephone company.
For 40 years. She was there for 40 years.
Yeah.
I later worked for AT&T, and
man.
I would drop her name. I'd be like, y'all know Juanita Harvey?
Hilarious.
Like, yeah, we know Juanita. So
hilarious.
she was a lifelong, Detroiter, Hamtramck. Like I said, her son grew up or took his family, raised his family on the west side of Detroit. My grandmother, which would be Juanita's daughter. My grandmother's name is Omar. God rest her soul. She ended up raising her family in Flint.
Okay, and that's that connection between both.
Yep.
Right up 75.
Correct.
Okay,
and,
so
and it drives a lot of what I do as far as wanting to connect, Flint and Detroit.
And we can talk a little bit more about that too, because most people from Detroit have family in Flint.
Facts.
And it's like I also say all these Midwest towns like have that adjacent city that seems like maybe 2 steps more southern. And no offense to anybody from Flint, but y'all know what I'm talking about. You in Flint, and I love Flint. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, MC Breed would be played at this should be known. MC Breed is getting played when I play some music.
Yeah.
But it's still like a little bit of a slower pace. So like Detroit has Flint. Chicago has Gary, Indiana.
Yeah.
Cleveland has Akron. Like it's like these cities that are like
Rust Belt.
Yeah, Rust Belt, or like as the streets would say, it's like you get into some street stuff, you gotta go a town over. That's the town over.
That's the town. Yeah.
That is the town over where you go. It's still industrial, Rust Belt, but like they say, like a little bit like, more people in agriculture. It's going to be a little bit more farming out there. Race is still an elephant in the room in those cities, but it's a different type of relationship between people in Gary, white folks, and black folks, than Chicago white folks and black folks, in Detroit white folks and black folks, than Flint white folks and black folks. It's a different energy.
Yeah, it's true. And as a kid, my grandfather would take me to, Flint basketball games. And so that's where,
oh man, what era?
This is like, Mateen Cleaves.
The Flintstones.
The Flintstones, Charlie Bell, Morris Peterson.
Okay.
Antonio Smith.
Oh,
watching those games, watching the energy, and they were celebrities, and then the bands and the cheerleaders. I took a lot of those memories, and I just want to replay them. When I see
that's deep
people, in Jubilee at a basketball game.
Okay, so what you're speaking about, and I want you to expand on that, but expand on that a little bit, and then I'm gonna add some context to it. Let's go there.
So for me, growing up in the suburbs, it was identity, right? Identity was big to me. And so I remember being 7, 8 years old and then asking my parents, being like, yo, like, why don't I go to school with, cousin Tion, or, why don't I go to school with, cousin over here? And I don't know how they responded, but when I would go to those Flint games, or I would go spend the night on the weekends in Flint or in Detroit, it would give me that, that pride.
Yeah, and the culture that you connected to.
And the culture that, that I felt like I was missing.
So this goes to that era in time, the Flintstones era. So some of this is known history. Some of this is hearsay history.
Yeah.
It's a mix of barbershop talk and newspaper articles here. And
T-shirts and memorabilia. They were the next thing next to Fab Five,
So I was going to say yes. So you have the Fab Five in the early 90s, which I beloved. Like it was like, wow, this is amazing. And then you have actually connected to this, you have an incident, and this is back to like one of those hearsay stories when I was in recording school with a guy. He was like, hey man, if you know someone that is into street pharmaceuticals, one of the things that people into street pharmaceuticals love most is to talk about the different people that are celebrities. So the guy in Ann Arbor that says like, hey, that whole incident that happened because Mateen Cleaves was going to go to Michigan University.
I didn't know this.
And it was an incident that happened where tractor trailer Maurice Taylor,
Yep.
and Mateen Cleaves all get into a car accident and marijuana's in the vehicle.
Wow.
And the marijuana in the vehicle, it had just happened to be, like I say, hearsay story somebody connected to that I was going to recording school with.
Yeah.
And it was a big incident. At that point in time, some of the start of this is like Tom Izzo's start at MSU.
Right.
So much of a disconnection of the George Perlis days of what was happening in football, and definitely long time away from what was happening with Magic Johnson. And then everybody thinks about what just happened with the Fab Five and what would happen. The thought process is always go blue. After that accident happens, Mateen Cleaves ends up going to Michigan State, which disconnects him at when we think of those Flint powerhouse high schools. Northwestern being one of them that most people connect with. But yes, so you connect these powerhouse schools, and Mateen Cleaves is like kind of that anchoring, bannering leader, and being kind of looked at as like, yo, this is like a modern day Magic Johnson. Got a lot of the other Flintstones to go. But that was kind of the initial thing, as they say, like some of this is newspaper articles and some of this is hearsay.
That's interesting. And I don't know it to be hearsay, or that was the first time I've heard that story, but it makes sense. It tracks out. Tractor Trailer, Desmond Farmer, you know what I mean? Like you said, it was a whole era of high school basketball where people, white, black, would drive all the way to the Breslin Center, to watch these guys play. It was a magical time for real.
And that's where it starts, the movement of what MSU and winning a championship, winning Izzo's only championships.
That's it.
And I remember that era, and State fans were ecstatic, especially the ones that were alive when Magic won his. You're like, if they was in school, it was like, we knew we was going to come back. It was a different era, but the energy around Flint, even leading up to those games, for people in Flint, it was almost like shut down the city. These are superstars. Yeah.
It was a different level. I was at Rochester High School, and Paul Davis was our big center, big white, Space Jam.
He was the jock of his day.
He was the jock of the day. But then we would play Pontiac Northern, and Lester Abrams would be dunking on him. So it would be, but it was levels to it. And so, like you said, Northwestern, Flint Northern. They were just in a caliber of their own.
So let's talk about a little bit of some more of the journey with your peoples.
Yeah.
So your parents, as you talk about, not grandparents.
Yeah.
They end up settling in the suburbs as you're raised. What did they do? How did they choose Rochester? What was the flow?
Yeah. So my mom, she's a state aide or state worker. Family Independence Agency. Retired state worker.
FIA.
Yeah, FIA. And then my dad, electrician by trade, engineer by trade, and then just really into agriculture, really into developing land, which I think he gets from his father. And so my father being an entrepreneur, as a businessman, he was doing well in the 90s. So him and my mother decided to build a house out in Rochester. And I remember being, one of one family, one of one black family in that neighborhood that they built their home.
So, all right, first let's talk just that relationship now with agriculture for generations, because that's usually the vision of most. It's like, I want to build my home. So the thought process is like to think of a modern day build a home. It's almost unfathomed that people would engage in something like that. There are like developments where it's like, hey, we're building this whole community, and you could pick a home that we're building, and this one can be yours, and we'll show you the showcase home, and it's going to be a little bit like this. But building your own home is something that you just don't hear often. What was that journey like? Like, what about your father kind of connected to the whole process of like, I want to do this?
I was a kid, and I have a younger brother, but I really think it was just him being a present, husband and father. And so my dad wanted to, although he wasn't, he's not as hands-on as I am as a father, in the sense of like, I I work from home. My dad he'd be off in Brazil, he'd be in Germany, he'd be in Mexico, he'd be traveling. And so I think, his thing was, go get it. And he still has that mentality. But I feel like, it was for his family.
So, and then you talk about the agricultural relationship.
Yeah.
And this is in an era where like and I want you to expand on this.
Yeah.
So many people talk about Black people's relationship to agriculture for so long has been such a interesting relationship just because of what enslavement provided and put into people. And then even after enslavement, what sharecropping and that distorted relationship did to people. So there were certain beliefs of like, I don't want to see nothing like that or associate with that, even the way some people even feel about like watching a film referencing anything about enslavement. So this relationship about agriculture for a couple generations, Black folks, not in masses, but there was a strong constituency of Black folks that felt like, I want to get as far away from anything to do with agriculture as possible, just associating with the thought process of what that means historically in an arc.
It's a trick, I think, with my father being so about his business, he learned, I think, he learned about ownership. And so his previous business was automotive, because that's, Chrysler was booming in Michigan.
Yeah.
And so he had a business, like a tier 1 supplier business. And I think those failures in that business made him look at land and these things that are just instilled in him from his father as far as like the value of land and the value of developing land and owning land, to where, you have to play that mind game of, oh, they think I'm just a sharecropper. Oh, they think I'm just, I'm here for Mr. Dwight, Mr. Dwight man. We play those games, but at the end of the day, do we own it? Yes. Is it bringing in revenue? Yes. So it's like it's one thing of what it appears to be, or how, it might trigger us or make us feel when it comes to working in agriculture. But I tell people all the time, I say, my relationship to land is not to just get on and get in the dirt. I like to do that stuff, but I got allergies. My relationship to land is like, what are we doing with it? Are we throwing parties? Are we having a performance? Are we doing educational things? Like, so I think it's everybody's different relationship to land stewardship and how they approach it. Some people want to, some people build businesses to sell them.
And I love that you provided that. And then also another note, when you say tier 1, just so people that outside of Detroit, a tier 1 supplier or a tier 2 or a tier 3, or in Detroit, it was even like tier 5 suppliers, meaning that like you're connected in the infrastructure of one of these more Goliath industrial companies. At one time, as we know, the big 3. So like if you're like a tier 3 supplier for Chrysler, meaning that like, okay, Chrysler buys all of its, I don't know, let's just say axles from Detroit Axle. Detroit Axle buys all of its screws from Brent's company. Brent's company buys all of his paint for the screws from my company. I'm a tier 3 supplier. And even though I'm a tier 3 supplier, because this is going to go into a Chrysler automobile, Chrysler needs to approve my contract and has a relationship with my business 3 contracts down. And this is how a lot of business and the foundation in the industrial world was built. Here's the contracts, the lawyers, the litigation, and so much of the culture of this whole region has been built in that arc. And, from Walsh College and stuff, like a lot of the roots of how we think American business functions is that way. Now, in this whole new arc of like these tech businesses, things are done completely differently. It's new cultures, but that's a key culture that exists here. So hence being a tier 3, because in other businesses, it's like, I don't care. You know what I'm saying? Almost like, you know what I'm saying? If you're the caterer, I don't care about where you get your tomatoes from.
Right.
But it ain't like that with the Chrysler.
Right. It's big money.
Yeah. So you also talk about that relationship with land and land
Yeah.
stewardship
Yeah.
that's so unique. And with that, as I say, this is an emotion that a lot of people felt at the
Sure.
time. Not as much now, because this movement, I believe, is changing, and it may be just my presence of mind here with it, in what's happening with urban gardening,
Yeah.
and just the response I've seen from the Collard Green Cook-Off and a lot of the other things I've done. It's not the same pushback I even remember of people that were my age 20, 30 years ago, because also people are getting more hyper center focused about where that farm to plate, meaning like how far does it take for food to leave to get to you. But these are things that have manifested over time and more awareness around agriculture. But agriculture is also the anchor to a lot of HBCUs when we think of even the role of Tuskegee. And Tuskegee's role, and I don't know, it can anger people, but like reading Up from Slavery from Booker T. Washington and his practical approach of like agriculture and building are the ways in which we're going to foundationally be involved in whatever manifests in this nation, and it will be definitely tied to quality of life. So exploring what can happen through agriculture. Hence, that's why George Washington Carver has his labs at Tuskegee.
Right. And that was his blueprint, right? Booker T. Washington's blueprint was to say, okay, that boat over there is not sinking.
Yeah.
This boat that I'm on, this boat that we on, is sinking.
Yeah.
And for us to not sink, we need y'all to help us out. And when you talk about fundraising, and getting to the bag, Booker T. Washington was one of the best.
I mean, I definitely think so many models in it. And also back to another Detroit concept, the relationship between Henry Ford and George Washington Carver is why the plant is called the plant, because the way that George Washington Carver studied the systems of the way that a plant grows and everything functions within each other, Henry Ford said, I'm going to create a process, an industry that's the same way. That's some more just Detroit is different information for you.
Man,
you know what I'm saying?
heavy
So
though.
it's connecting. And when we think of these systems and knowing those relationships, like what your father did in building his own home, as those that have done it and seen it, it's also like looking at, we kind of learn this with insurance and stuff like that. It's like you own the home and you own the land, and we're building the home on the land, and now we are more materially invested in everything associated with the whole process of what this development is. And him being in that world and shifting to something in agriculture and going back to his roots, now I got to uplift more questions about your grandfather and his relationship in this world of agriculture too.
It's very similar. It's like a hybrid. You have a sense of you have a sense of pride in knowing where you come from, knowing who you are, and then you also just have intelligentsia, and putting all that to work. Where it's like you got some natural gifts, and knowing how to, my granddad, he showed us how to, cut a chicken head off, and kill a chicken and fish and clean a fish, right? But also he was let him tell it, and I believe it's true. He is one of the first, regional electricians for Consumers Energy, black managerial regional something of consumers, not DTE, but consumers. And so I just think my grandfather and my father have these gifts, and use both, their resources and then just, naturally what God gave them. And real quick, like I mentioned, having this agriculture background, but then, my entry was I want to do some music.
And that's exactly where I was just about to get to, because that's how I know you originally, how we met. So let's talk a little bit about from that high school journey into hip hop to college.
Yeah.
You're there. Where do you go to college?
Yeah.
And when do you start your hip hop journey?
Yeah. So I go to college in 2004. I come to Wayne State on an engineering scholarship. And I wanted to, at the time, be graduate and do what my pops wanted me to do with this engineering degree. And it did not go to plan. I got really wrapped up in, poetry, open mics, culture, art, and, formed friendships with individuals who also had that same passion to want to rip mics and write, on the pads, on the notepads, and store them, keep them as reference in order, to have a repertoire of material to deliver at any time at any open mic. This is at a time when you had open mics every day of the week, and so that's what I got into, and it started off as open mic poetry. There was a spot called True Essence in Southfield, where they were using the theater, or using part of the theater off of the Northwestern Highway or Telegraph, as a venue. And so, you had a promoter who noticed that if you could bring people back to the venue, then you had something, to program. And so what he would do is give people, resident cards, poetry resident cards, or, blacksmith, this is your resident card. So you get a $5 entry instead of paying the $10 audience fee. And so that gave me, some purpose as far as, coming every Sunday and delivering some poetry. And then that's when we got into rap. I linked up with Mike Wright and Mike Phelps. And we were recording in my studio, and we were just rapping over old tracks. I figured out how to use Cool Edit Pro, and those were my very humble rap beginnings, very conscious rap beginnings, in the sense of just like what we were trying to rap about, it was something that I was very, very passionate about.
So as you give that story, and you give a lot in that, that's why I didn't even want to break your flow. Like usually, it's like, Car, you talking all them interview, because that's a Detroit is different interview sometimes. But you also are leaving some key things that I want you to open up the gateway for.
Yeah.
The first thing is, man, y'all rap group had one of the best names ever. That's the one thing.
Yeah.
The second thing is, even before we get there, you're stepping into a campus at Wayne State, 2004, where the culture is a little bit different, as it's now more so being defined as Wayne State is shifting from this concept of commuter school, and now it's like, nah, this is a lived campus. I really think that those students that came in 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, like that 04 to like maybe 2010 era at Wayne State, the energy felt different. Right. Can you talk a little bit about what was happening on campus and how did Wayne State feel to you?
Yeah, I became a socialite in the sense of, I wanted to go to the events. I wanted to go to the parties. You had a strong sorority and fraternity brand at that time, where they would, be in Gullen Mall, right in the center of Wayne State's campus.
Yes.
And, you would have everything from, ciphers to, just concerts. I mean, I saw Chris Brown there, back in 2005 for the Mad Anthony, celebration that they would do. T-Pain, performed at one of them. So you almost had, I think, because you got a college in a city, in Detroit, centrally located, we had a lot of attention on on the college, and then you had people there that were like, really into wanting to do something there.
Yeah.
So whether it be parties or events or workshops or I think about like Jessica Care Moore and her being at Wayne State, and starting, being the initiator to get Martin Luther King Day off at Wayne State.
Definitely.
Right. And so these groups that existed, before, and it's like you get to Wayne State and it's like, well, what y'all doing? Well, what you doing? And so for me, I just I started a group called Creative Nations United, so this is precursor Coleman Young, but I wanted to bring creatives together. And whether you drew or you rapped or you DJ, I wanted to celebrate that. And I was very close with Student Affairs renting out spaces.
And for people that don't know, like if you're, even though it's a lot for a student, but if you're a student attending a university and you rent out a space, it's very much subsidized, meaning like the rate is very reasonable, but still, even as a student, you know what I'm saying, reasonable can be like, damn, $100, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But here we go, you know what I'm saying? But in that energy, I just remember that era, and you brought up not just Jessica Care Moore, but we've talked about Wayne State's journey, a school inside of Detroit, and even its just relationship with Black folks. I mean, so many of the organizing to get the Black Studies department multiple times and just Black students in there.
That's it.
It's an interesting story, and as much as I'm speak of this every time I bring this up with Wayne State, it's not like Wayne State is exclusive. I'm pretty sure that this happens at Temple, at NYC. Like it's not exclusive. This is the relationship between institutions and Black folks, just because of where racism stands in America, and the work you all were given at that time, meaning like what you are providing. In that mix of poetry and rap, it was the other elephant in the room. Like right now, where his music is where it is, like you could tell that a pivot even happened in music from being so much of a focus of like, I guess 50 Cent being the most popular rapper to now Kanye West emerges as like the most popular rapper in America in a different arc with, at that early tones, definitely ideas and consciousness, identity, and just opening up the gateway of what representation of a Black male looks like in hip hop. And right there, as that happened, so many people was like, oh man, it's your time, because the music I was doing at the time. And I'm like, yo, it's some cats that's killing. That was y'all.
Yeah, thank you, man. Yeah, we were a 4-man group. Shout out Mike Wright, shout out Mike Phelps, shout out Capelli, and myself, Blacksmith as Cold, men young, cold like ice, men over 21, young like under 21.
Also, it's like a double entendre.
It's like a double entendre for the mayor. That was at the time when Pac Div, came out with that song. I might run for mayor. It was a spirit that we had when it came to how we, saw ourselves as mic controllers, like,
and Pac Div, another group like in another youthful energy, but on the West Coast, like the Pacific division of the NBA. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what it was at one point in time. But that was like that, and I remember what we might run from there. It was like a whole field. It was what you all were doing. It was what. Damn, my mind just slipped. I can't believe it.
Yeah, you had Detroit City, you had Street Justice.
I think, and even a little younger, Clear Soul Forces.
Clear Soul Forces.
It was like a wave of Detroit hip hop where it also looked like, as you all were like hitting stages where it wasn't just traditional hip hop, because it was that mix of poetry.
Right.
Or being in spaces where we're not used to seeing hip hop as much, but willing to offer it in a way where it's welcome. There.
That was it. Because we were going, we would be at Alvin's, we would be at Beans and Bites.
Yeah.
And shout out to, just Phoenix LaShawn Moore. We would be at Cliff. We'd be at Cliff Bell's.
Rest in peace.
Rest
in peace to man, that just made me think of so many folks that worked in the space of creating stages for poetry and rap to exist, and you all kind of like
that's it,
bars that door open.
That's it.
But I was thinking rest in peace to Sparrow,
Sparrow.
because Sparrow was another person that uplifted the mixing of it as well.
He was at Lola's on Tuesday nights. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? People was drinking out of martini glasses, listening to, you know,
Hip-hop.
some hip hop.
But in a scope where it fit.
Right.
You know, and I was thinking the Cool Kids too, because I think the Cool Kids, definitely what Chuck English and them were doing was in a different scope where it's like, okay, this is like a wave, and even with man in Cleveland, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. He does a lot of acting now.
Kid Cudi.
Kid Cudi.
Yeah.
It was like a wave of hip hop that comes to life that just doesn't feel like the box that rap was so street.
Yep.
Even though it honored the street elements in it.
Yeah, and I'm not street, right? So it was for me, it was like, let me get my bars off.
Mhm.
Let me get my witty literary bars off.
Yeah.
Right. And let some of those other cats kind of check that box.
Yeah, because that's a lane for them.
And so I was amazed at, you know, what I was seeing, just the spectrum of, you know, people who could freestyle, you know, or people who, you know, I think of like a Mo Dirty, you know, like you don't belong in Detroit, you know. When it comes to what we were delivering or what we were offering, you know, we wanted to make sure we talked to women. So we would have like these like ballad tracks, you know. We was really trying to sculpt something as a 4-man group.
And also, I want you to kind of talk about like we're used to seeing the story in like from like a arc of like the 5 Heartbeats or the Temptations movie, but being in a rap group can sometimes be, I think, more pressure than even the singing group, because staying committed and where the creativity goes, how to share things. You brought up Mo Dirty. One of my favorite groups of all time was what J Kidd, Mo Dirty, Hostile all come together. But it's like rap groups, it's just so tough sometimes staying in that focus and riding that wave. And I really was like, yo, Coleman Young, I remember I was like, this is a moment. And the creativity and the passion of the wave up. But sometimes, like when those opportunities don't present themselves, because I'm sure you all were faced with the same thing that I was looking at too. Like, to move further, you may have to leave where Detroit is.
That's it. You know, and for me, I was able to see really the numbers, right? So you got 4 guys, you know, you doing a show, you know, y'all make $200, you know what I mean?
$50 a piece.
$50 a piece.
Yep.
So I wanted to expand my repertoire, and so I ended up, you know, you mentioned doing something different, or, you know, kind of siphoning off, but I ended up working with another guy named Brian Lackner, and we created a group called Pasalacqua. And so that was my group to want to get around the world, you know, because that was my dream. My dream was to, you know, like I want to be the rap superstar. And, you know, I guess in a nostalgic way, like the MTV, right? I wanted to break some type of color, something, right? And be in doors that, you know, people hadn't been in before.
Which now I have to ask this within it as a siphoning off, and we've even seen this so many times. The perspective, usually, especially in hip hop, is like from that zero-sum game perspective.
Yeah.
As if like it's only enough room for one.
Yeah.
You only got access for one person.
Yeah.
And that's it. How do you... First, I want you to speak a little bit to that.
Yeah.
How do you even manage in that? Because especially like you got this young testosterone, this young energy where, I mean, sometimes, I mean, I've almost seen I've seen fist fights over just the way a person raps the end of a hook.
Yeah.
As if like, if you don't rap this the right way, it could be the end of everything we're working on.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was a resource thing. And so I felt like, you know, those guys, when I say those guys, Mike Phelps, Mike Wright, Capelli, they were all individual artists too.
Yeah.
And I felt like I didn't want to do anything solo.
Yeah.
And I felt like this Pasalacqua thing, I said, well, shoot, you know, we get some grant money, You know what I'm saying? We about to do some Coleman Young stuff, and that's what ended up happening. I ended up, parlaying, with two groups. Not recognizing, just the fatigue that would come with it later. But at the time, like 2012, 2013, 2014, we're on a bit of a run where we're traveling, we're performing. We're going to South by Southwest, unofficially and officially. But really, what I was able to do around that time was to travel to other cities and have somebody doing some booking as far as like different cities. And so being able to get that snapshot of saying, oh, y'all, this is doable. We could hit a city, here in New York, travel to Philly, drive south to DC, and then just come back up and maybe do a show in Ohio.
Yep.
So I was able to see like just some circuit routes, doing some of the Pasalacqua things, and then they're at the same time, these Coleman Young was still doing things, but really like I wanted to bring some sauce back.
So what were those experiences like in that travel? Because I found I've done some hip hop traveling, and it's and let's put it like this. It's a different it's hip hop traveling is very interesting.
You see where we at now, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, we not traveling as far as those circuits, because like you said, it's not once you're in it, or if you're somebody that's like a lifelong tour person, some cats is they touring for life. That's what they love to do. They love to be on the road. I found that that wasn't for me, and in the sense of, again, you got to be a little bit delusional to do this art thing, right? And so my delusion was, well, shit, it's not selling out arenas, right? We're playing dive bars. We're playing,
that's really where it starts. You're doing like a dive bar. You're doing the version of Alvin's in this city, and you're relying on having a relationship with the Coleman Young in Kansas City.
That's it.
In Pittsburgh.
That's it.
In other places. And that's why I usually, when I talk to like a lot of people, I tip my hat to artists like Tech-9 that really have built a hell of a constituency with these different promoters in different places to know that, like, okay,
a lifelong tour person. Tech-9 is a perfect example.
Yes.
But you realize it requires a lot of coordination.
Yes.
And then also my eating habits weren't the best while on the road.
Oh, eating habits, drinking habits, sleeping habits, like you're gonna be in, like, really, the rung is, I would say, is Detroit to Cleveland to Pittsburgh to probably, if you don't do something in Jersey, then you end up in New York, then you may come back down if you got enough of a juice to Connecticut, then Philly, then from Philly, like you say, to DC, then from DC, you're going to go over to Cincinnati. From Cincinnati, you may get Columbus and then come back to Detroit.
Yep.
Now, the ring of those days, and usually the hip-hop show, when you start, you're not going to get on stage to perform maybe till like 12:30.
Yep.
It's going to be an audience, a lot of testosterone, a lot of dudes.
A lot of dudes,
lot of
people managing
at like extended stays.
Yep.
You sleeping in vans.
Yep.
Taco Bell will be your friend because it's like, what else is going on? It's a habit that I think that if the right age, I believe for me, you gotta be the right age. If you're not the right age, it's gonna be more daunting. Even getting access to, like, okay, I got to get in here, get a shower going, and let alone, then also it's the other elephants in the room of, like, I love that one episode of Atlanta when what's his name, Paperboy shows up and is chasing down the promoter to get the money, because that's the other elephant in the room too.
Yeah.
It's getting paid for the show you just delivered.
Yep.
And where does the art go? And then sometimes you got to be honest. You look at the show and you look at the people in the crowd, and it's like, it's going to be like blood from a turnip. I'm supposed to get $400, but I see it's only 15 people out there.
It gets dark. I remember I come back home. We would 2015. We did a 60-day tour, and we traveled the country. With Hike Keach out of Baltimore, now in New York, and Easy Jackson. who's also an artist out of Baltimore.
Okay.
And so we did like a midway stop in Detroit while we went all the way around the country. We went as far west as LA, as far north as the state of Washington, Seattle. And then when we came back around up through like Iowa, we stopped and we did Grand Rapids on the west side of the state. We stopped in Detroit. My girlfriend, my wife,
girlfriend at the time, wife
thank
now.
you, wife now, thank you. She said she didn't recognize me just based off of how I was taking care of myself at the time. And then I just remember coming home and just not feeling like I had any purpose after the tour. And so that was something I just really I didn't like that feeling, because it almost made me feel like I had to be on the road, or I had to be promoting some type of out of the city tour or something for me to find value in my art. And it took some years to kind of reconcile that.
That's deep.
Yeah, and I got over that. But yeah, I haven't toured since then.
And let me say this, and I mean, as much as I'm uplifting this, and I mean MC to MC, because it's still in you.
Yeah.
It took me even a while for it's like, yo, you like seriously, y'all was dope, and to just sit with that, and it's like, well, if I am that dope, why don't this happen, and why don't that happen, and why don't this, and why don't that? Because still the perception is all of this entertainment. When I often tell people this, it's really like the Wizard of Oz. And the further I've gotten into it, for me personally, the more it's like I'm pulling the cape back, and it's like, oh man, what you doing back here? Because it's so many people. As I interviewed earlier today, Miles Dixon, Doc Chill, and he was talking about his record deals and things like that in the work. But it's like the performer, and I mean this, is the last person to get paid in this equation. Meaning like the machine, the agents, the venues, the producers, the engineers, the managers, the road managers, the attorneys, like almost like you can interchange the performer so quick, even though the performer really has the intimate relationship with the audience. But that same intimate relationship that J. Cole has now, those people will be listening to Cordae next.
No,
and the
facts.
machine is just interchanging it. So as a person that's intimately connected to this, you start feeling like you have to build up such a substantial, I feel like almost like mental armor, emotional armor, to not feel like this is so transactional, almost like prostitution or something, like to know that like, okay, this is the business, but this is the intimate parts of my life that I put into my art, and I can't mix both, which kind of makes you psychopathic in the first place.
Yeah, it's an uphill battle, right? And I think that's why my father and my mother is like, this is what you want to do?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's an uphill battle, like you said, you're the last one that gets paid. And frankly, I was tired of doing that fight.
I mean, even right now, it's kind of going viral. Like something. Shout out to Sada, and I mean, man, we booked Sada on some of his first shows. But like, Sada's talking about, I've never seen a check from streaming. But I mean, it's not just Sada, baby. This is what Snoop Dogg was saying. Like a lot of artists are like, most of the money comes from streaming. Where is the streaming money coming?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Where does it? I don't see the streaming, and you're relying on systems where you're last to get paid. You usually get paid. You're gonna get paid quarterly.
Yep.
So that alone is just so, you and then you keep touring.
Yeah.
It's you don't know what and how and when, and you're relying on other people to manage your money, and then people wonder, it's like, why are all these artists going broke? And it's like, the system is not necessarily set up from the lens of the artist.
No, it's not. It's not. And so that's why, I think it's a good time now to, refocus, reshift, reinvent. I've always loved the music, but I'm always trying to figure out, how to take it to the next level. As you were saying, like you're talking about people managing your money or managing your accounts, that's another level.
Yeah.
Right. But if you look at it from just like, okay, take the art out of it, just from like a music admin level, right? We've been doing this enough to, have some knowledge on how to make things transactionally work for us and still be emotionally content.
And that's what's so tough about it, because your emotions are really, when you writing those 16s, when you go in that booth, this is you. So it's a part of you. Creativity, creation. It's like, this my baby, and
this
it's
my
like
baby,
and it's like, yep. Well, we're gonna take your baby and we're gonna put him on the corner, and it's like, hey, what are you doing?
It's true. And so what I found, licensing, I was able to get into licensing through, the Pasalacqua and the Coleman Young era, and really figure out, how to get those royalty checks, right? How to be on the publisher side. And then, fast forward, I don't count my goals or accomplishments, but I'll count them before the year, and I'll say, like, I want at least 2 placements or 3 placements in film or television or something like that. And so, when those emails come through and saying, like, hey, we'd like to play some of your music, although it's not, it's complimentary money, but it's still like you said, your baby is.
It's in a more this is in a way where it's more of a, here we go, arm's length transaction.
Yes.
So it feels more balanced, and it doesn't feel as usury as, because it's not the Wizard of Oz thing where you kind of don't know. It's like, all right, look, we got 10 dates, but we got to pick up the other 5. And it's like, what did that mean? That means basically we have money for 5 shows.
You mentioned like emotions, right? This emotion when people talk about agriculture.
Yeah.
I think there's a similar emotion that's triggered when you're talking about performing.
I think the same thing.
Yes. Especially as a Black artist. And so that's another thing that I've always wanted to, like, people be like, because everything that you do as a Black man, you do feel like you doing something that you shouldn't be doing.
It's like, man, is Dr. Umar gonna be is the Prince of Pan-Africanism? I'm just messing with you. No, but in performance, the reality, it's like a running discussion I often say, and I love them, like Black artists that have exclusively Black audiences. But the reality, even this summer, as much as everybody loved We Not Like Us, the reason it's a hit song is because it's multi-millions of white streams connected to it. To be a successful, and this is the other thing that I think in business and art and a lot of perspectives of like success. A lot of success means basically white audiences have galvanized around your food, your music, your business ideas, your book, your motivational speaking. It's like success within our own culture. And hence that's why I love the Frankie Beverly and Mazes. The Luther Vandrosses, like people where it's like
Stephanie Mills.
It's like that's gonna be a Black audience when you go there. You know what I'm saying? Right. Like whereas like even sometimes like you go to a Wu-Tang Clan concert, as much as the concept or even a Public Enemy concert, like we're thinking of this, and then it's like, okay, this is like at what line do we draw the who is this for and where does it stand? See,
to me that's dangerous though. That's dangerous if you have a repertoire that speaks to all those different things that you just named, right?
Yeah.
And I think, I grapple with that, I'm looking at validation, right? I'm looking at Black validation.
Yeah.
I'm looking at white validation.
Yep. And then you're looking at money in business.
I'm looking at money in business, right? So if you're a real artist, and I think this is a good sign, you gotta have thick skin. And so I know some real artists that don't care about that stuff. But when you're like me, and I'm looking at, I'm like, what the metrics look like? You know what I mean? You get sensitive about the metrics.
It can be tough, and I do think that this era is more in your face, especially being, like I say, the man that shifted a lot of this really pushed the metrics, and that's Kanye West.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Because his presence was saying the metrics mean this.
Yes.
And one of the most brilliant creatives ever, but also one of the most what in the hell is going on creatives to me. But I do understand the impact of, like, I don't think you can tell not just the hip hop story. I don't think you can tell the pop culture story without mentioning Kanye West at this point in time.
No, that's
now,
a fact.
because so much has shifted in that. Even this summer, that the Drake Kendrick beef carries so much in the arc of, is this popularity that's bringing this, or is this an access, which is kind of what the Drake lawsuit is, which is still very strange in the world of hip hop, or is this really what people are galvanized to? Meaning, how much of this is conditioning versus how much of this is appreciation for the art? And I believe it's a little bit of variance in all of it.
Yeah. No, people see people want good art, and I want to make sure, like, if this is like what am I leaving? What am I leaving as my legacy? I'd like for the people that I appreciate artistically, like putting on our A&R hat. You know what I mean? I want all them people to shine.
And I say putting on my A&R hat, the more it's back to, like, I look at it like the Wizard of Oz thing more. I would say it's still so personal of who that artist is. But for me personally, I think the coolest things I've done, I've checked off a lot of the boxes. But it's when other dope MCs, it's what Jeezy said, your favorite rapper's favorite rapper. Like,
that's it.
That to me is way more important than any of the other metrics, because I don't know if the equation's ever balanced, because so many other resources go into getting to certain points and positions.
Yeah,
because you need those teams.
You do.
Though all of those other people in that equation, they're so important. And if you don't have those people in the mix, it's just not gonna move. I mean, Danny Brown with Reservoir Dogs, shout out to Brown, was amazing in rapping, and I think some of his best raps.
Yeah.
But the machine wasn't there.
Right. It's interesting, you mentioned Danny Brown. Danny Brown had a tight, following in New York. You know what I mean? Because he was out there.
Yes.
And so, again, it's like, it's when you have big ideas, when you have talent, when you have brilliance, you know what I'm saying? I think half of it is like, where do you want to grow your roots?
So that's good as we shift back to the agriculture and roots.
Yeah.
So from that project, how do you end up saying, okay, let me get back into things like this? Like, look, I got some salt from the garden.
Yeah.
Shout out in with that. But I'm also about to get some ginger tea.
I got you.
But how do you get into a couple things? Family, agriculture. What connects you there from saying, all right, let me touch back base into this where my family's at, as opposed to like more driving deeper to say, okay, let me move to LA.
So good point. I like that, because the Yeeman Street, Hamtramck, right? I ended up leasing a room off of Burnside, with a woman named Kate Daldrell, and she was a urban gardener in Hamtramck, and basically had an operation, had a gardening operation, and I came to Kate, or like the opportunity came up to,
so like
rent her place.
Like it's like a 2-family flat, and she's up and you down, or something like that.
Correct. And then there's empty lots surrounding the home, and so there was a sharecropping element to what I was paying monthly for rent, but it also allowed me to be creative and to travel and to go on these little tours, but while at the same time.
So the willingness first it wasn't like one of those things where you watched Super Size Me and said, I'm growing my own food for everything. It was more like something a little bit more practical in the beginning.
Something a little bit more practical, and I tried to do grow some collars and try to sell them to the juicery downtown. You know what I'm saying? And learned a lot through that lesson, and making sure that the product was fresh.
You
right?
you dropping ego too, because this is also the mental thing of like, that's Blacksmith trying to sell me college. You know
That's
what I'm
it.
saying? It's like the new another act that I signed similar to y'all, but in the new Little Brother album, it's like a verse where he's like, yeah, I'm driving Uber, but I'm still Little Brother. You know what I'm saying? But
That's a
still,
fact.
you know what I mean?
No, that's it. And so I really got it back there. I ended up working with a farmer out of Challenge, Detroit. Her name is Annie Hakeem. She's been a partner of mine for over 10 years. We were doing work over at Shane Ferry and doing some of their agriculture, farming, and then also making sure that there was some cultural elements too with concerts.
So I do got to add 2 points
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
So the first one, that's real. Like for most rappers, especially the testosterone and ego of men.
Yeah.
There's a lot of men in rap. The ego of, man, they saw me on stage 2 weeks ago, I can't almost do anything. It stunts a lot of people that have rap from doing anything else in life. I don't care what the opportunity is. You know what I'm saying? It's like what I look like being an announcer at a Piston game when I used to be a rapper. And it's like, hey, man, you know what I'm saying? So the willingness to do that is already a fence to hop. When do you start telling, like, when do you start connecting with your dad and your granddad about like, yo, this is what I'm doing, because it's in the family business kind of a little bit anyway.
Yes. So you make a good point, because people would see me and they'd be like, you still rapping? And it's like, I'm always going to rap. You know what I'm saying?
But having that response is
ego.
You'd be surprised how tough that, and I know we're just saying it's ego,
Yeah.
but it's not like just because you say it's ego, it's like depression. It's like, I'm depressed. And it's like, well, get happy. It's like, you can't say just because your ego, you know what I'm saying? She, she fine as ever. She's somebody like, I love your music. And it's like, anyway, I got these pizzas that I'm delivering to you from Pizza Hut.
I got these phones.
Yeah, I got these phones. It's not like you could just check it like, this ain't my ego. Hopping that hurdle, how did you hop that hurdle?
I would use my workplace as my network. And so, if I was working at Pizza Populis, I'd be like, all right, y'all, we got a show at 1515 Broadway tonight. It's walking distance.
Yeah.
So everywhere I went, I wouldn't.
You carried it with you.
Yeah, I would.
The same shame of, I need to think rap, be rap, is rap.
I think it's weird when people don't disclose their artistic ambitions, right? I think it's cool to, like, you don't got to come off like, yeah, I rap, or I do this or I do that, like right off the bat. But like when you work with people and you see them on it every day, I don't think it should be a secret. Like, hey, out of here, like, I be rapping, and so that's the mindset that I came with.
So the teacher that got the OnlyFans, you'd be like, hey.
That's a good one.
I'm silly.
They blow up. They blow up when they get on TV. That's when their numbers go up. But no, for real, like when it came to the urban gardening, I was trying to put it together. I was trying to merge, like, yeah, we rap and we growing food, and we got a song called Food Justice, produced by Sheefy McFly. You know what I mean?
Shout out Sheefy, another one of them.
So, I was trying to do it all. Like now, fast forward, I'm more again, I'm older and I'm not trying to perform. And so what I am trying to do is try to find platforms that are in the urban agriculture space for artists, because I almost feel like, Michigan, right? When we think of Michigan, we think of like pure Michigan and nature, and
you don't think of culture is everywhere, but the culture of pure Michigan is like, you think Great Lakes. I think I'm in marketing, so when I say this, I'm always going to offend certain people, but you think of like the soccer mom that's cool, you know what I'm saying, that is, like maybe her grandparent is Cherokee, the rest of her family's white, and you know what I'm saying, like you think of something like that, and in the Reiki massages and all of this stuff is cool, but the last thing you think is like hip hop.
So that's what I'm saying. So what's my dangerous idea? I want to push I want to push hip hop in that ag space and be unapologetic about, hey, cannabis is legal. We outside, maybe we keep 100 feet from those who might have, respiratory issues or something like that. But my point is, like, there's a certain energy that hip hop brings that you should already know comes with the bill. The bill and the feel. And it's not everybody, however, it is just more in your face. And so I was able to, partner with, younger artists and bring them to a garden, Featherstone Garden, downtown Detroit, and show out. Play the music full blast right outside across from MGM Casino. And that I'm glad that I did it this year because MGM sold the land.
Yeah.
So Motor City Grounds Crew, Featherstone Garden entered in a 3-year agreement with MGM Casino to say, hey, we'll operate this land, we'll cultivate this land, we'll grow here. We have a home base on the east side of Detroit. But for this area, we want to be able to have community events, grow food, sell to local restaurants, and, we'll see what comes up after 3 years.
And this is the land activation part.
We are going into our 3rd year. They ended up selling the land to U of M for a parking structure that they will build, or a parking deck that they will build across from their new innovation center, right there off of right there by Cass Tech, across the freeway.
Yeah.
And so I feel, like next year we don't know what's going to happen, but my whole thing is I don't want to leave downtown because we built up an audience of having hip hop, poetry, open mic. We called it Growetry, hosted by Mike Phelps. Every other Thursday.
Coleman Young still in effect.
Right? And so Coleman Young will always be the invisible hand that will, when I say Coleman Young, I mean the person, right? Just being very, very upfront about his intentions. And I feel like that was something that, we were able to get through the music. And like you said, you still see a little bit of that from what we're creating now. And so with downtown being such an asset right now, we just did the draft, the NFL draft, and, there's numbers around how much money that brought in and, how many people, over 800,000 and all that. It's interesting to me that we don't have more spaces to celebrate hip hop smack downtown.
And that right there is one of the other nail in the coffin things. And I've done a lot of stages before. I think the last stage I was most active with was with my man Khan, or Kills as people know him, but no bullshit at the Bullfrog when the Bullfrog shut down. Just the space and place for stages in hip hop is so scarce in Detroit, especially when we think of how popular Detroit rap and hip hop is right now. And it's still to the point where the stages are so limited for artists. I do recognize that now the culture is not, it's shifted to the gateway. Definitely when I was starting was you start through open mics to kind of studio. Now I think it's damn near you may have 3 albums out, right, and then when you hit the audience, then you think, okay, let me develop a show.
Right.
But it was almost like the opposite.
Yep.
So I recognize that the way people use it and connect to it is different now. But yeah, I do really miss a good rap open mic. And now I'm just talking rapper to rapper. Rapper open mics to me, and me and Nick Speed sometimes talk about this for hours. It's like, I love comedy too, but it's like comedy because even watching a bad set, like a bad comedian, is something interesting about watching a bad rapper set to me at an open mic. To me.
Yeah.
To other people, it may be like, this is horrible. But even watching the rapper transition where where rappers get on stage and say y'all probably ain't gonna feel this because it's, you know what I'm saying?
Setting
it's fresh out the studio.
It's why are you saying that?
It's fresh out the studio. I kind of know some of this, but some of it I may not know. like all of the energy that certain people put into the performance of it, like when people had to dance, when people bring, background dancers, when people like set up sets, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna set up these 6 minutes, and I'm gonna have the first 2 minutes be a verse and half a verse from song 1. Then the second 2 minutes be half a verse from this, and then I'm gonna rap on the new Drake beat. Like, so the energy of that, I love.
So there's a tension there for me, right? Because some of that comes off very like amateurish and raw.
I do.
And some of it I like, and some of it I really like, but some of it I really don't like.
And that's why it's like you're watching someone engage, because it's so many other things I hear. Because I know he was in the studio with his homeboy or his lady, or like somebody he's real close to, like, oh, when this drop, the sound effect gonna be like this. And half the time the person that's the DJ is half drunk, and they probably starting the track late. You know what I'm saying?
So one of the things that I think that goes along with the poetry and the rap, right? There's another element to that, and it's the R&B. It's the vocalist.
Yeah.
So Pierre Anthony just came to mind. He was
shout out Pierre.
Shout out Pierre Anthony. Collaborated with Coleman Young. They just bring another element to something that's already crafted. And so I did a short contract with the Motown Museum, activating their outdoor space, having events and programming and whatnot. And they have a Amplify singing competition every year. And they're what I really like about what the museum is doing is they're grabbing young talent, and they're saying, okay, like, we're gonna do our own American Idol, hosted by Dougie Fresh, at the music hall, right? And my father would always say, Brent, relationships are the most important thing. Relationships.
That's deep.
And so, I made it a true effort to connect, R&B, young R&B talent, and telling those performers, like, hey, Motown Museum, rightfully so, wants you to sing Motown hits. Come over to the garden and come sing your own original music, to your point of not hitting enough mics, or not hitting, not getting
not
that
having
work.
access to as many stages.
Not having, yep.
Yeah, because this isn't Austin. This isn't Memphis. This isn't a lot of places where, when I think of the musical talent in Detroit in a few stages, and shout out to everything Jay is doing with Miss Eva's.
Shout out Jay.
It's so important, because it's not enough stages to perform live music, or New Orleans. Like, you go down Bourbon Street, you may see 25 bands.
You're gonna run into something.
And it's just as many artists to perform here that they're performing across the world and the nation.
Right.
Because it's not enough stages here.
Right. So back to like pure Michigan, like our weather, we don't okay, you go out to the West Coast and pay that extra money to live out there, right? But when you look at a Detroit summer, right, it doesn't get any better than that. So I'm like, okay, as long as we, are hydrated, and I got maybe, some tents, right? We could be right outside and hit it hard when it comes to like delivering what I'm so used to seeing indoors, right? On the bullfrog, hip hop, amateur
stage,
open mic stage. We bringing it right outside, and I just, it's something that is driving me to continue to, make platforms. And really, like I was saying, like I want the cream to rise to the top.
I'm with it. And just know that, like, I'm now that I'm more aware, I'm gonna pull up to one of these, because like I say, I like a good amateur hip hop night personally. It's interesting, because as you rap, it's so much more I see and I hear in it, because I was there.
Yeah.
And then the other thing about it, especially like those open micers that come every week, it's like you slowly but surely see them grow their craft and their artistry.
That's it.
And that is something too.
That's it. And it's growing at the same time you're offering other programming, right? You have a repertoire of programming. And when it comes to, what we're doing, we're saying, okay, like, we want Urban Arts Orchestra and
shout out Deshaun.
Right? We want you to come and just pop up at the garden and play, right? We want to pop up with, Melinda in Studio M with her art.
Yeah,
her art
with her art
installations.
pieces. Yeah, which are
Right.
interesting as ever.
And so I want to make a hub of creatives just doing what they do so well. And then, with some of these master tools that we've been able to collect because of the time period that we've been doing this for so long, right?
I'm with it. So we get to a close now. I get to hit you with the classic question.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I don't know if you want to uplift something and everything.
Oh, wow.
Add some sauce before we close. I don't know what you want to impress upon. The website you want these people to hit, a Cash App, or whatever is going on.
Man, I just want to celebrate Detroit is Different podcast.
Thank you.
For 10 years.
Thank you.
Make sure you follow Detroit is Different. Make sure you follow the Blacksmith, TheBlacksmith. I came up with Blacksmith at my grandfather's house in Arkansas. He had a shelf full of books, them black encyclopedia books.
Yes.
And I said, my last name's Smith. I'm looking at this black book. I'm like, okay, I'm about to be the Blacksmith.
Hilarious.
So just to make it full circle, man, I really appreciate this conversation. I think, creating our own platforms is the most important thing that we can do while we're here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And very much appreciate it.
Yeah.
Definitely want to get into some more. There's always some creative ideas that I'm coming up with, but it will be more.
Yeah.
So I don't want to spoil nothing, but we're going to connect a little bit more because I got some ideas already about something on a low lift that becomes a higher lift.
Yeah, man. I hear you behind the scenes, man. You got a lot going on, brother.
Yeah, man. There's always something. Yeah, he was here before, like where we talk about the Quasar and some screenings for a video essay. It's always something. And I love that it's always something. But all of this definitely, similar to your story, I learned the management, the presence, the confidence. So much of what I've learned from hip-hop plays out in the community work, the business, and just personality, period. It starts from hip hop. The space to be as serious as hell as we went into some very deep issues and race. Then I can add in the comedy that's still in the arc of like it's reality. And then just getting to know like hip hop is the arc of like, okay, I can be all of this because I have so many examples of what that was from the perspective of others like me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it all comes from somewhere. You mentioned MC Breed. My cousin Dave Maul from Flint, Michigan. May he rest in peace. But that was MC Breed's homeboy. So it's pictures, my cousin Dave and MC Breed getting it in Flint. And so he, you know what I'm saying? He impressed me, as a kid when, like Brent, can you, hit him with this, in that culture of Flint dance and Flint rap. And so I just, again, this conversation just helped me tap into some of that today.
Oh, man, definitely. I mean, I guess with Rio the young OG out.
Man, shout out to Rio.
And then also, like, I mean, we think of Pac-Man and so much, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, for so long, John Connor, I mean, Flint is in that space, but also more in my space, Mama Soul. I mean, Mama Soul is, I think, the Mama Soul experience is, you talk about poetry and rap, and I don't even know. It's like, it's hard to even explain what Mama Soul gives, but it's amazing.
It's amazing.
It's like, that's a must-see performance, I think, definitely for Black people. She on that list, So, all right, classic questions. Your very first car, year, make, and model, year you got it.
My grandfather, shout out to Willie, put me in a 93 Burgundy Buick Century.
Oh, I had a Buick Century too. It was an 89 gray from my grandma. Where's the first place you went when you got it?
Oh, man. First place I went when I got it. I don't know the first place I went, but I did go to I drove to Windsor. I drove to Canada.
Oh, 112.
Yeah, man. I don't know what I was on, man. I was talking to this girl. She wanted to get her tongue pierced. I was
okay, wait. So you you were 16 or 19 at the time?
So good question. No, we were in high school. I had to be 7.
So you couldn't even get to 112.
I couldn't even get to 112.
Okay.
Yeah, it was strictly for the purpose of
her and the tongue ring.
Yeah, and this tongue ring. And so I was like, yeah, we could just go drive across the border and handle that.
Okay, because we can go there.
Because we can go there because I can drive because I got this the Buick Century. Do you know on the way back that thing, that Buick Century, the engine went out on me crossing the border.
Wait, time out. Okay,
Yeah.
now we getting into a very
Yeah.
interesting Detroit and Flint story about this whole thing. We gotta unpack this a little bit.
Man.
But this is teenager thought process.
Yeah, yeah,
Dude, teenagers, you know what I'm saying? The things a pretty face can do.
yeah, yeah.
You know, so that's why we need to have more benevolence with the good brother Travis Hunter.
That's right.
So with that, okay. So definitely got the new whip.
Yeah.
One of the first people you call is said young lady. And it's
Yeah.
like, yo, I got wheels now.
Got wheels.
You know what I'm saying? And what year is this?
This is 2003.
Okay, even though the car 10 years old, I'm rolling.
I'm rolling.
What up, though?
I don't know nothing about car maintenance.
I don't know nothing about car maintenance. I don't know where an AutoZone is. I know I can put some gas in here and what's up?
What's up?
And
That's
she
it.
like, I want to get a tongue ring. Thought process is like, okay, that's a good decision.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yep.
So then you get in the car. You
Man.
go, tongue ring successful.
Yep.
In Canada, it's like, okay, it's cheaper over here because my money worth more.
Bro, I think we skipped school that day.
Okay, even more of a teenage decision. More of a teenage decision. A lot of other decisions were being made on the thought process.
Man.
Talks to, like I say, this is like rap. It's like I can see her talks to other homeboys
Yeah.
like, yo man, da-da-da-da. It's like, oh, for sure.
Yep.
And then you coming back, you go tunnel or bridge.
We went tunnel.
Oh, that's even more embarrassing.
But I'm glad that we didn't stop in the tunnel. Or
So you did.
I made it through.
You made it through in the waiting line.
The waiting line because the mug we were idle, right? So that I think that engine heated up and
yeah. So you waiting,
yeah,
and then it's like okay,
it started smoking.
Oh
It started
man.
smoking.
So this is where a man's confidence back to ego. It's like he driving over,
Yeah,
A1.
smooth. A1.
tongue ring in.
Yeah,
I'm really the
good.
man.
Yeah.
Drive through all day, waiting in line. It's like see some smoke. If you've ever been in a vehicle with a woman in your car starts smoking, it's like
It's all the way bad.
So all right, car starts smoking.
I had some water. I had like a 2 liter or something of water, a jug, and I just went outside and I started putting water on it, man.
Also, this is the other thing that everybody watching may or may not know in Detroit. Detroit sits on the most traveled international gateway for freight, meaning that it sits on the border of Canada. Windsor, Canada is across the way. Like we can see Windsor, and it's not like how what you call it, that one lady, the one vice presidential candidate can see Russia. No, it's like we really can see Windsor. Meaning like if it's fireworks, they see them. Like you see them. So we sit on the gateway. So it is a U.S. Customs border right there. This is post 9/11.
Yeah.
And if you know anything about customs, you definitely want to remain in your vehicle through getting past customs. You almost want to remain in your vehicle like a block after you get past the customs thing. You know what I'm saying? So you get out the car, and I assume what happens next.
I mean, I think it was harmless at like where we were. We weren't like I could see that if we were up front, like by customs, and I got out my car, I think it would have been an issue. But they were probably looking at it like,
what's going on with your ride?
What's going on with your ride? And I'm trying to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up calling a homeboy, man. The car just didn't work.
Another teenage decision.
Yeah.
Instead of calling parents, you definitely call a homeboy.
Yeah. And it made him look like,
the man.
You know?
So he comes. So that means he has to drive through. He has to go to Canada and come back.
Something
So he
like
comes
that.
back.
Yeah.
And now what's happening with the car?
Bro, I must have got it towed, but the car was done. The car was done.
Okay, this is where the child.
Yeah.
This is where the teenage conversation gets to parental conversation.
You gotta.
I'm pretty sure this is.
You gotta escalate this one.
This is not. That's where it gets tough.
It's blurry because it was 20 years ago, but I think I had too much pride to ride with my homeboy. I just wanted.
You roll with the tow truck.
Yeah, I roll with the tow. I roll with the toe, or at least I got it.
That's good dude ethic.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
He won that one. You know,
all day.
She won. Yeah, shout out to the homie.
Shout out to the homie.
So valuable lesson learned in the Buick Century, man.
And I can already tell you, I assume the discussion when get homes to parents.
Yeah, man.
That was a tough.
What was that one, man?
That was a tough one.
I also messed up a 90 Cougar, a brown one.
Oh
man.
Yeah. Okay, so from there, you're the DJ at the end of the fireworks. Woodward and Jefferson get to play 2 songs. What you playing?
Oh man, Woodward and Jefferson at the fireworks. I'm playing. Oh, it's young. It's a young crowd. We like young OGs out there.
It's up to you.
I'm playing something hype. I'm playing like Ice Cream Paint Job.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I'm playing like if I had to mix in like some R&B or something a little, like if it's like the end of the night, something sexy a little bit, I'm playing How Deep Is Your Love, maybe the PJ Morton and the Yebba version.
Okay.
Nothing against the Bee Gees, but just we smoothing it out,
I'm with it.
But yeah, if we hype, I'm definitely playing, I might play Block Party, you mentioned Sada. I love to see people in their most joyous moments.
That's dope.
Yeah.
So then we close.
Yeah.
You could rename Woodward after one Detroiter. Who would it be and why?
Easy. I would rename Woodward after Coleman A. Young. And he already has the municipal building named after him.
Yeah.
So I want to remind those coming down the Dream Cruise, if they coming south on Woodward, past 8 Mile, you on Coleman A. Young Drive.
That's dope. And he is obviously the most uplifted Detroiter when it comes to that name. And even it's so funny. Shout out to the work he does. Damn, I'm forgetting his name.
Oh, I know you're talking about the historian.
No. He does a lot of like the gangster documentaries and stuff.
Prophet?
Yeah, Al Prophet was like, Woodward's already named after somebody. That's my Al Prophet voice. But it's like, he's a slave master. Or an enslaver. That's the term I want to use. So we want to change that to the person that's not an enslaver, a person that escaped Alabama from crazy racist conditions and arced one hell of an era of Detroit black leadership. So that's what I stand on, like a lot of people. Even though my vote is always changing depending upon the day. But I'm rocking with it. Blacksmith.
Man.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Peace.
Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.